Hey everyone, ready to dive into a real classic UFO case.
Oh yeah, this one's a big one.
The Levelland UFO case back in November 1957. We've got first-hand accounts, official investigations, the whole deal.
And still plenty of debate about what really happened.
Buckle up, right? So picture this. Cold War era, not long after Sputnik's gone up, everyone's a little jumpy about the sky.
Definitely sets the scene.
Small town Texas, Levelland, think big open plains, wide open sky, and then boom, the police station starts getting flooded with calls.
Not just over a few days, right? This was intense.
Hours, just a few hours, all these reports pouring in. What would you even think if you were the one answering those phones?
I mean, the stories were pretty wild. Multiple people driving around, seeing this bright light.
Not your average car headlight, I'm guessing.
No, some said blue flash, some said egg-shaped object. But here's the thing. As they got closer, their vehicles would just die.
Wait, what? Like stall out?
Engines sputtering, headlights dimming, radios going dead. Something was messing with their electrical systems big time. Okay, so let's get specific. Two of the first guys to report this, Pedro Saucedo and Joa Salaz, driving west of town.
Their truck engine just quits out of nowhere.
And then
This thing, this rocket-shaped thing, rises up from a nearby field and starts heading straight for them.
you've got to be kidding me.
Saucedo was so scared he jumped out of the truck, hit the dirt. They said the object flew right over them, rush of wind, sound like thunder. The whole truck rocked.
The truck rocked. Dang, that's not just some light show.
You know, something with some real physical presence going on there. And the second the object moved away, truck starts right up like nothing happened.
Spooky. So it wasn't just a one-off, though. Later that night, Jim Reeler's driving along, encounters something blocking the road.
Described an egg-shaped object, but get this. He said it was about 200 feet long.
200 feet, that's huge. What could even be that big?
And the same deal. His car totally died as he got near it. Only started working again once the thing took off.
It's like that electromagnetic interference you hear about in a lot of UFO reports. But some folks say, hey, maybe it's just ball lightning. Or St. Elmo's fire, those can cause electrical problems.
Right.
But come on, does ball lightning really shut down a whole car engine like that?
And 200 feet long. Yeah, not your average ball lightning.
Exactly. So if it wasn't that, what are we talking about?
Now we're getting into it, right?
Yeah.
Well, one guy, J. Allen Hynek, he was actually tracking Sputnik at the time, so he knew his stuff about the sky.
Serious scientist.
Yeah, he said ball lightning didn't make sense here.
Interesting. So what did he think it was?
That's the big question. And this is where the Levelland case gets really interesting, is like, how do we even explain things we don't understand?
Like we try to fit these square pegs into round holes.
Totally. And sometimes that square peg makes you wonder if you need a whole new hole. So strange lights, car troubles, the official story's shaky.
And this wasn't just a couple of reports. We had Newell Wright, student at Texas Tech, driving east of town.
Right, his car goes haywire too.
Amateur going crazy, headlights dimming, and then he sees it. Another egg-shaped thing, maybe 100 feet long, gone. Car starts right back up.
And even the sheriff, Weir Clem, he saw a bright red object in the sky while he was out checking on all this. So you got everyday people, a college kid, law enforcement.
All seeing basically the same thing. Okay, so we've got a whole town on edge, these weird happenings, and no good explanation. What happens next?
Well, that's when the big guns come in. Project Blue Book?
The Air Force, the real X-Files team, right? What does they make of all this?
Well, they send an investigator to Levelland, spends about 7 hours there, mostly talks to Saucedo, Wheeler, and Wright. Gathers some info, comes to a conclusion. Ball lightning? Or maybe St. Elmo's fire? Triggered by stormy weather.
Hold on, they're sticking with that, even with all these huge objects and cars going dead?
Yeah, and that's where things get controversial. Researchers, ufologists, they started pointing out some big problems with that explanation.
Ufologists, those are the folks who specifically study UFOs? Right.
Exactly. They're deep into this stuff.
Yeah.
And they said, first off, there wasn't even a thunderstorm in Levelland during all this.
Seriously? No storms?
Nope. James E. McDonald, he was a big name in UFO research, even testified to Congress about this later. No lightning, no thunderstorms, not during those 2 hours when all these cars were stolen out.
So no ball lightning then. What else did they find?
Well, remember Hynek, the Sputnik guy? He had access to all the weather data. Confirmed, no storms in Levelland that night.
Okay, so that pretty much debunks the weather theory.
It makes it hard to believe, for sure. And Hynek's point was, does ball lightning really stop cars cold like that? It's a good question.
I mean, lights in the sky, sure, but messing with a car's electrical system, that's a whole other level.
Totally. And there's one more thing that's fishy. The Air Force only interviewed 3 of the 15 people who reported something that night.
They just ignored the other 12.
Didn't even mention them in their final report. It seems like a pretty incomplete investigation, don't you think?
For sure. So, credible witnesses, consistent stories, the official explanation falls apart.
It makes you wonder what else could have been going on. If
Yeah.
it wasn't the weather, what was causing all those car problems?
Right. What if it was something about the cars themselves? Or even the location? Like something about Levelland made it susceptible to something else.
Ooh, now that's getting interesting.
It's kind of creepy, right? To think stuff could be happening around us that we just don't get. Like science can't explain it yet.
Yeah, I can see how that'd be creepy. But it's also kind of exciting, don't you think?
Exciting how?
It means there's more out there, more to discover, more to figure out. It's like a whole new world of possibilities opening up.
Okay, yeah, I see that side of it too. But back to those cars for a sec.
Yeah.
If it wasn't ball lightning messing them up, what are some of the theories? What could cause those electrical systems to go haywire like that?
Some people think maybe these UFOs, whatever they were using some kind of technology we just don't understand.
Advanced tech, huh? Like what kind of stuff are we talking here?
Well, think about it. 1950s, right? We were just starting to figure out stuff like electromagnetism, energy fields, all that. Maybe those UFOs were using tech based on stuff we hadn't even discovered yet.
So like they're zipping around in their flying saucers using super advanced gadgets to, I don't know, scan the countryside. Study us.
Sounds like a sci-fi movie, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, we're dealing with something unidentified. We got to keep an open mind. And if it was that advanced,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, who's behind it? What are they doing here?
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. Are we talking aliens, secret government experiments, time travelers?
All those are on the table. And don't forget, Cold War was in full swing. Everyone was on edge, suspicious of everything.
True, everyone looking at the sky wondering if those lights were enemy planes or something weirder. So you're saying maybe those UFO sightings were tied to all that Cold War anxiety.
Could be. Think about the imagery. Strange, glowing things coming down from the sky, messing with our tech. It's easy to see how that could play into those fears of invasion, right? Like some powerful force is coming to get us.
It's like the UFOs became a symbol for all that fear, for the unknown.
Exactly. And it wasn't just fear either. There's also this sense of wonder about space, about what else might be out there. The space race was just getting started. Maybe these UFOs represented hope, like, hey, we're not alone.
That's a cool way to look at it. So the UFOs were more than just objects. They were symbols, reflecting all the hopes and fears of that time. But we still haven't answered the big question. What were these things?
That's the tough one, isn't it? The one we may never know for sure.
But we can still ask the question, right? Keep searching for answers.
Absolutely. The Levelland case, like so many others, reminds us there's still so much we don't get about the universe, our place in it, all that.
It's like a reminder to stay curious, right? Keep an open mind.
Totally. And speaking of keeping an open mind, let's talk more about that official investigation. Project Blue Book. Did they really take this seriously, or were they trying to sweep it under the rug?
Well, you gotta remember, back then, the government was super secretive about anything that could seem like a threat.
Especially the Cold War and everything, yeah.
Right, so it makes sense they wouldn't want to admit they couldn't explain these weird things. Some folks even think Project Blue Book was more about debunking UFOs than actually investigating them.
Wait, really? Like covering stuff up instead of finding the truth?
Hard to say for sure. But there have been some leaked documents, people speaking out, saying the government might have been hiding info about UFOs from the public.
Ooh, now that's a conspiracy theory I can get behind. But seriously, what kind of info are we talking? And why keep it secret?
Well, some of those documents suggest the government was tracking UFO sightings closely, especially cases where those objects were messing with our tech, like in Levelland.
So worried about national security, huh? Maybe thought it was some Soviet superweapon or something. Could be. Or maybe they thought people would freak out if they knew we might not be alone in the universe.
Imagine the headlines. Flying saucers invade Texas. Yeah, that could cause some chaos.
Total PR nightmare, right. And trust in the government was already kind of low back then.
Yeah.
Cold War, Red Scare, all that. A lot of suspicion going around.
So better to play it safe, keep the UFO stuff quiet, tell everyone it was just weather. Makes sense politically, I guess. But it also feels kind of shady, right? Like not being straight with people.
It's tough. On one hand, the government's got to protect people, and sometimes that means keeping secrets. On the other hand, People have a right to know what's going on, especially if it could affect them.
It's a balance for sure. But back to Levelland. We've got these believable witnesses, stories that line up, and then this official investigation that seems more interested in explaining stuff away than actually figuring it out. What does that tell you? Does it make you lean towards believing something really unexplained happened that night?
Honestly, the more I dig into this case, the more I'm intrigued. Too many unanswered questions, too many things that don't add up.
Like a puzzle with some pieces missing, huh? And even the pieces we do have don't quite fit.
Exactly. And sometimes it's those missing pieces, those unanswered questions, that are the most interesting part. They keep us guessing, keep us coming back for more.
Levelland definitely keeps you guessing, that's for sure. Over 60 years later, and we're still trying to figure it out.
That's why it's such a classic case. It's a story that keeps drawing people in, even after all this time. Reminds us that there are mysteries out there, and the truth can be elusive.
It's kind of wild to think, right? Like, this was just one night in one town. How many other Levellands are out there?
That's the thing. Levelland is just one case, one of many. Especially back in those Cold War days, there were tons of UFO reports.
Like a whole wave of activity in the skies. And we're still scratching our heads about it all these years later.
Totally. And what's even weirder is that these sightings weren't just happening in one place. They were all over the world.
So it wasn't just some Texas thing. Global phenomenon. It's almost like something was trying to get our attention.
Now that's an interesting thought. What if it wasn't random? Like, what if there was some purpose behind it all?
Purpose. Okay, now you've got me hooked. But who and why?
That's the million-dollar question, right? No easy answers there. But we can speculate, look at the evidence, try to connect the dots.
All right, let's speculate. If we're going with the idea that these UFOs were part of some big plan, what are we talking about?
Well, one idea is that they were extraterrestrial. Like maybe they were checking out our planet, studying our civilization, our tech, all that.
Like a cosmic research project, little green scientists in their flying labs taking notes on human behavior.
Haha, that's a fun image. And some UFO researchers really believe that's what was happening. They point to the sheer number of sightings, how consistent the stories are, the fact that these objects seemed way more advanced than anything we could build.
Okay, so alien researchers, that's one option. What else?
Another one, this might be a little more unsettling for some people, is that maybe these UFOs represent some kind of intelligence that's been watching us for a long, long time.
Watching us. Like observing us, but why?
That's the mystery, right? Nobody knows their motives. Maybe they're just curious, like we might be curious about a new animal. Or maybe they've got something else in mind.
Okay, now that's getting a little creepy. Like, we're being watched by some unknown intelligence and we have no idea what they want.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
It's an idea that's been around for ages in sci-fi and philosophy, all that. The idea that we might not be alone in the universe is exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
It makes you feel pretty small, right? Like just a tiny part of something much bigger.
But it can also be pretty awe-inspiring, don't you think?